Hey, everybody, welcome to day 16 of the 25-day risk-taking experiment. Today is all about telling your story. It's story time, and I can tell you what's going to happen with your story. It's going to be a happy ending because you know what's going to happen? You're either going to win or you're going to learn. You getting tired of me saying that? I'm not tired. So this week is all about telling your story as if it's already happened. But before you tell your story as if it's already happened, you have to know what's going to happen. You have to know your story. You have to see your story. You have to hear your story. You have to smell your story. You have to taste your story. You have to touch your story. You need to know what your story is so vividly and so clearly and so comfortably. You have to imagine the story and give yourself permission to experience it using all your senses. So you're going to have the chance to tell a story of hope or a story of fear. Now, it's scary to tell a story of hope because when you tell a story of hope, you make yourself vulnerable. You can get hurt because if you want something and you are excited about something, then, it doesn't happen, pretty much hurts. But here's the thing. You're not going to be tied to the outcome. What you are tied to is the experience, the story. The outcome is just, well, what happens right now. But you're going to be tied to the feeling and everything that is part of experiencing what it is you want. You could be hopeful. See, things have changed. Things have changed dramatically. Before, you were all worried. You were all scared because you were too afraid that if you hoped too big, if you were too excited about something, that you were going to get hurt, right? A lot of worry, a lot of fear, doom and gloom, shame. That's over. We're done with that. Goodbye, shame. Goodbye, worry. Goodbye, old thinking. You're telling a different story. So just put all of yourself into this. See, if you tell a story of worry and fear, you know what you're doing? You're practicing living the worry and fear. There's no good. It doesn't help. Practicing doesn't make it easier. No, no, no. You want to experience how great, this is so cool, how great it's going to be. I'm really happy about this because this is the story. This is your story. So push the worry and fear away and let's start being really hopeful. And let's start telling great stories that fill us with light and love. Now, we learn from the youngest age that if we are too hopeful or if we tell a story that's too positive, we're doing something wrong. I was the assistant coach of a softball team, my daughter's softball team. I was a terrible assistant coach, but one day the coach had to leave the dugout and I was in charge for a little bit, right? Maybe a mistake. Who knows? One thing I'm great at doing is telling a positive story. So I had all the softball players go around, and this was the exercise. You're going to tell the story of the game, and I want to hear how exciting it was, and I want to hear how you were able to win this game. And this one player said, "I'm not doing it." And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "I won't tell the story." I said, "Why won't you do this?" She said, "Because you're going to jinx us." I said, "I'm not going to jinx you." She said, "Yeah, you're going to jinx us. You can't do this." And I said, I'm not going to jinx you. They lost that game. I'm not saying it was my fault that they lost it, but there's this fear that we have of being too hopeful and too excited. There's no jinxing. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But the story that you think, the story you feel, the story you experience, is going to be a great one. Eventually, the world you live in is going to reflect that story. So I hope you will choose hope. That's a lot of hope. And I hope that you will choose happiness. And if you're used to having fear and doom and gloom be part of your narrative, please push that aside. There was a mom who visited with me after an event I was hosting at a high school. She came up to me and said, "Oh, this was such a great night. I was so excited. Thank you for this event. This was the best event ever." Big, very dramatic. It was a really good event. But she said something that really surprised me. She said, "I'm really worried about my daughter. She's had a history of struggling in high school. I don't know why she's choosing to go to college. I think she's going to end up failing out and be back on the couch before I even know it. I don't know what to do. I don't think she should go. I think this is a terrible idea. I've told her." She said, "But she still insists on going. What should I do?" And I said, "Can I tell you the truth?" And she said, "Yeah." Because I ask people permission before I tell them the truth. Because if I tell them the truth and they say yes, then they can't be mad at me. I said, why are you telling this story? I said, I understand you've been hurt. I understand you've been disappointed, but she's going to go. So why won't you tell the story of she went, she struggled, she got help, she was able to work through it, and I'm so proud of her. So why don't you tell that story? Because when you tell a story of fear, when you tell a story of disappointment, when you tell your daughter the story that she's not going to make it, you know what she's going to think? The person who loves me the most, the person in my corner who has the most faith in me, has no faith in me and doesn't think I can make it. And I said, listen, I know it is so hard to believe and to get disappointed, but maybe this will be the time she makes it. And if she doesn't, at least you're the person in her corner. And you can help her to find people and places. You can help her to find the support, and maybe that will change the outcome. So if you're open to it, tell a different story. Choose hope and happiness. Seeing is believing. When you close your eyes, when you imagine what's going to happen, when you practice what's going to happen, and elite athletes do this, leaders do this, you could find a million of these stories, more than a million stories. This is just a quick little snapshot from Psychology Today. Seeing is believing, the power of visualization. A study looking at brain patterns in weightlifters found that patterns activated when a weightlifter lifted hundreds of pounds were similarly activated when they only imagined lifting. So this idea of imagining lifting, when you imagine it, you're activating the same parts of your brain. So this is the thing that's so wild, is our brain does not know the difference. Our brain doesn't know. Our brain doesn't know what's real, and our brain doesn't know what's imaginary. So if you can experience something so beautiful and have the physiological experience by engaging your senses, by focusing on what this is going to be, the sensory journey of this experience, of this story, if you could indulge yourself and do this, it's so cool. When I get really tired and I can't fall asleep, and this is so vulnerable, I imagine I'm in space floating around, like just floating around space. I close my eyes and imagine I'm floating around. And I imagine that with all my senses, and I feel like I'm weightless in space. And it is so relaxing. But it is kind of a ridiculous thought. But it's also kind of cool because my brain doesn't know that I'm not in space. When you tell stories of fear, when you internalize the worst case scenarios, you're practicing that. Your brain doesn't know it's not real. So start practicing telling hopeful, happy, wonderful stories that can engage your senses in the most wonderful ways. This is so fun. Like, why not, right? Because now you're equipped. You're comfortable with the uncomfortable. You're going to have a support system in place. You've got everything you need to make this a wonderful experience. So give yourself permission to imagine your outcome as vividly, as wonderfully, as just incredibly delightful as possible. And that's so fun. Everything. Play a game with this. It's just such an incredible experience. There's a few books that I really enjoy. I talk a lot about visualization, and you might be into these, you might not. The Law of Attraction by Esther and Jerry Hicks. If you think it and you believe it and you live your life telling the story of what is before it even happens, it will create, it will manifest, because the energy, you're attracting that energy. And it's really cool. I love the Law of Attraction, and you can see the Law of Attraction, and you can see the power of visualization and thinking in the classic Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It's, I think, one of the earlier books, or at least popular books, earlier in terms of our lifetime and in terms of this century, let's say, that really communicates clearly how to attract those things that you want to create. And then in the Success Principles, Jack Canfield does a really great job of going into tell your story as if it's happened. I love the Success Principles. I think it's a wonderful book. So these are books that you can use that can help you on your journey. So today you're going to imagine your story. You need to imagine the story. Tomorrow, you're going to tell that story. And then the next day, you're going to start living that story. And we're going to practice every single day telling our story. And I'm going to introduce how to tell it as if it's happened in our next lesson. But for now, your assignment is Describe how it feels in vivid details to complete your risk and achieve the results you desire. Use all your senses and write it. Now, you know how to share this. You can text this to me. You can share it through social media, wherever you are comfortable sharing. The most important thing is for you to write it, because when you write it, you have a much better chance of actually making the things you want happen. There's proof. You got the Facebook group. I'm hanging there. You've got social media. You can find me wherever you hang out. Also, invite your friends or family to check this out. If there's a lesson that really resonates, just invite them to participate in that one. I'm so grateful to be here with you. I am so excited to be in your corner, and I look forward to continuing the conversation. Thanks, everyone.